Welcome to OLC 4.0, Term 2A, Class 18. All right, let's try that again. Welcome to OLC 4.0, Term 2A, Class 18, A27 and 28. Just Part A, there's Part B tomorrow, and using antonyms. This is Jillian Percy, and here is our contact information page. Work can be sent to studentwork@nnec.on.ca. Please include your full name, course name, assignment number, and name. And if it needs a rough and a good draft, please label them both. My email is jillian.percy@nnecschools.org. Facebook and YouTube are both the same. Capital G, capital P, ERCY, space, capital W, AHSA. So Facebook, you can reach out to me, and YouTube has previous recordings of the class. This class has been taught every term. So there is term 1A, 1A, 1B, and then 2A. All right. Today's work, we are going to look at what antonyms are and how we can use them in a sentence, understand the definition of what a symbol is, understanding the meaning and usage of common symbols, understanding the use of common emoticons or emojis, and understand the audience and purpose for advertising and common hooks that advertisers use. Okay, so starting with antonyms. We talked about synonyms yesterday. Today is antonyms. Antonyms are words that are the opposite of another word. So the opposite of hot is cold. So we would use those or consider those antonyms. Sometimes when we're writing, we aren't looking for words that are similar to the one we are thinking of, but words that are the opposite of what we are thinking of. So what are some other antonyms of hot? Icy, freezing, chilly, cool, glacial. Those are the words I came up with on my own. But then when I went to an online thesaurus, I found so many more. Okay. So now I've got, here, these are the synonyms. You have to make sure that you're on the right definition. So if you can see here, the word hot has several definitions. So you want to find the synonyms or the antonyms, you have to be on the right definition. So if I chose hot and meant like spicy to taste, I'm going to get different antonyms and synonyms than if I chose passionate or vehement or new and in vogue, like, oh, he's wearing the hottest new thing, that kind of idea. Yep. Okay. So if I was looking at the online thesaurus for synonyms, underneath is usually where the antonyms are. And antonyms for hot would be things like Arctic, cold, cool, and then dry, freezing, frigid, calm, indifferent, mild, moderate, old, old-fashioned, out, turned off, unfeeling, and unpopular. Now, some of those do not quite match, do they? And if you take a look up here and you can see this little button that says most relevant, and it's kind of darker, it means that the ones that are darker here are the ones that are going to match the other ones. The other ones are really, they would kind of be antonyms for some of the other definitions of hot. So they are antonyms for the word, but not for that particular meaning of the word. Like if I was trying to say, you know, my husband is hot, but I feel cold, I wouldn't say I feel old-fashioned. That's not an antonym for cold, or I feel unpopular. But it might be an antonym if I was saying, ooh, that girl's dressed in the hottest new outfits. On the other hand, over here, I'm wearing, stuff from the 1990s and feel a little old-fashioned. Then it would be the antonym. So you got to be careful that when you're picking antonyms, that it matches the meaning that you're aiming for. Okay, and so here would be different antonyms if you mean hot, referring to spicy food. Like, I love to have hot tacos. As compared to temperature, they mean like spices. But the opposite would be bland, dull, tasteless. And then a bunch of here that really wouldn't work, right? Calm, cold, indifferent. There's one, yeah, mild. Mild might work, right? If you ask for mild chicken wings, they know that you don't mean you want it spicy, you want it not too spicy. So there's definitely some overlap, but you have to be cautious when you're choosing the antonyms. Why does it even matter? Why bother using a thesaurus? Well, one way to improve your writing from a rough copy to a good copy during that revision stage is, I'm sorry about that, is to improve the vocabulary or word choice. So on my own, I only thought of 4 to 5 words as alternates. Using the thesaurus gave me a lot more options to use. And most of these words were familiar to me. They just weren't jumping into my mind immediately. So, especially if you're sitting down and doing a bunch of revising at once, it's easy for your mind to go blank or go dry. And then using a thesaurus can be a great way to kickstart your thinking and provide you with a lot of options. Looking for synonyms or antonyms for some of the words you use in a paragraph or essay can be an easy way to give your writing that boost that it needs to sound more interesting. And professional writers use them all the time. So why not you? All right. Lesson 9 is about symbols and emoticons. And it's not a very, it says 10 marks. I think it's actually 12 marks. Can I fix that? Yeah, I think so. I think it's actually 12 marks. Take a look. In lesson 7, you looked at how to read a textbook. In this lesson, you're going to look at how to read a type of text you may not have thought of as text. If you are getting information out of it when you look at it and think about it, then that is a type of reading. And as you've seen, there are many types of reading that people do every day and many reasons for doing so. Visual text is just text that, as the name applies, is visual. You don't have to read it and understand it. You can just look at it. So for example, over here, I've got my little smiley face. Nobody has to like figure it out or explain. They know what it means, just like it's a little happy face, right? Can you think of any examples of text where the pictures are as important, if not more important than the words? If you said comic books, then you're right on track. There are other forms too, such as maps, tables, charts, timelines, diagrams, and even advertisements and instruction manuals. It is important to understand the organizational structure of a variety of visual texts so that you can identify the purpose of the text, locate information, and identify important details. Sometimes if you're reading, especially in a textbook, they'll say like, look at figure 1.2, and they're expecting you to know how to look at that, understand it, and then come back to the text with that information kind of in your head. So how does the form of a visual text help the reader to understand the information or message that it's trying to convey? They say that a picture is worth 1,000 words, so you can be the judge. Okay. So first of all, before we go any further, what does the word symbol even mean? So I looked it up in the dictionary to make sure that how I explained it was how a dictionary would explain it. So first of all, it's a noun. And the definition they give, there's a few definitions, but the one that strikes me as being the one we're looking for is a sign, shape, or object that is used to represent something else. So for example, a heart shape is the symbol of love. The wheel in the Indian flag is a symbol of peace. They can also use something that is used to represent a quality or an idea. Water, a symbol of life, recurs as an image throughout her poems. A number, letter, or sign used in mathematics, music, science. The symbol for oxygen is a capital O. An object can be described as a symbol of something else if it seems to represent it because it is connected with it in a lot of people's minds. So the example they give is the private jet is a symbol of wealth because it's such an extravagance. Like if you're Taylor Swift, maybe it's something you need every day. But for most people, owning a private jet with the amount of money it would cost would just be a waste of money. So that's why it's kind of become a symbol of wealth. Okay, so assignment 27 is about emoticons and symbols. And okay, so this is written slightly long ago. So there's a few things in this particular lesson that may actually seem a little bit old-fashioned, and I apologize. This is just kind of what we have to work with, okay? Unless you have not used a computer or a cell phone to send emails and text messages before, you will be familiar with the emoticon or emoji. What is an emoticon? Well, look at the word. The first part of the word looks like emotion, and the second part of the word comes from icon, which can be defined as a picture. So what do you do with an emoticon? You use it to have a picture of emotions. Now, we have started using emojis so much these days that I'm kind of worried that people might not recognize these emoticons. These are what they used back, oh, maybe 20 years ago, and they were pretty widely used before emojis. But a lot of times these days, if you typed these into your computer would actually automatically turn it into the emoji. Um, so our first question says, what does each emoticon mean? And give an example of when you would use it. If you aren't sure, if you're one of my younger students and you've not seen those particular items before, I included a little link there. And if you go to Wikipedia, it'll have a little list of emoticons and it'll show you what they mean. So the emoticons are here. Here's the newer emoji, and then there's what they mean. So just in case some people don't really know what those symbols mean, um, here's kind of a little cheat sheet, I guess, for you to find and the information on. Okay, so number two, why do you think emoticons or emojis have become so popular? So that's worth 2 marks. So you want to be sure to put it in a complete sentence. So for example, I think emoticons have become so popular because, and then you would give me a reason why, okay? All right. List 3 other emoticons or emojis that you have used or have seen, what do they mean, and when you use them. So for each emojicon, you're going to do 3 things. So you would draw or insert the emoji or emoticon like I have here. Then tell me what it means. This is the silly face emoji. It means the person is acting silly or trying to be funny. And then when would you use it? I would use it if I was talking to a close friend to make sure they knew something I said was meant to be a joke or sarcastic. So you have to include all those things to be able to get each one of the marks for the 3 emojis. You have to do it for 3 different emojis, okay? Okay, number 4. The question for number 4 says, brainstorm a list of reasons for using symbols instead of words. And again, 2 marks. So when do you think symbols would be useful or maybe even necessary? Are there times when words would not be helpful? Think about kind of different types of people, different types of languages, different situations where symbols might be helpful. Number 5, do you consider punctuation such as periods, commas, exclamation marks, etc. to be symbols? Why or why not? Now, a lot of people just guess. They're just kind of like, oh, I think it's this. You might want to refer to a dictionary or an online encyclopedia such as Wikipedia to find a definition for punctuation before answering this question. And also think about our definition of a symbol, sorry. Important notes. You cannot just write a dictionary definition as your answer. You can mention the definition, but then I would need to explain why. Like I can say, the dictionary says that punctuation is this. And here's why I think that they are or are not symbols. Also, different dictionaries might give you different definitions. So I've looked at this up in different dictionaries and I might get very different answers. So I'm pretty lenient about this, but you have to be able to explain why you think it. Okay, what's your reasoning? So here's an example, poor answers versus your good answers. So I think they're symbols because the dictionary said so. Nope, that's not a very good answer. I want you to be thinking for yourself. I think that they are not symbols because the dictionary didn't say anything about symbols. Well, that's basically the same kind of thing. In both cases, you're just looking at an outside authority rather than reasoning about the definition. So, symbols are a mark or character used as a conventional representation of an object, function, or process. For example, the letter or letters standing for a chemical element or a character in musical notation. Now, a lot of students will write me something like this and think, oh, I've aced it because I have got this right from the dictionary. The thing is, I can tell that you've written that right from the dictionary. So again, I'm not going to give you the marks for that because someone else wrote that dictionary definition. You didn't. I want to know what you think. So here's an example of good answers. the dictionary said, and then you could tell me whatever the dictionary said. And I think punctuation marks are or are not symbols because, and then give me a reason. So first of all, you're giving credit to the dictionary. You're explaining that the dictionary you looked up used that particular definition rather than trying to make it seem like it's your own words. You're answering the actual question, and hopefully your reason makes sense. So that's what we're looking for there. Okay, so here are 12 symbols, and they want to know, what do you think the following symbols stand for? And basically, every 4 symbols is worth a mark. A lot of these are really, really obvious. Like, I'm pretty sure everybody knows what this is. If you're not sure, you can search on Google. The second row, for example, are road signs. And the third row are warning labels on materials. And again, there are some links here to places where you could find the answers if you didn't know. This one is talking about WHMIS symbols, which would be on materials. Here we talk about road signs in Canada. And this is one that talks about symbols and meaning. So just to kind of show you what I mean, if I click on this, or I typed it into my search bar, now it's not right up top. I kind of have to go down a little bit, but then you can begin to see it lists a whole bunch of different road signs that are common in Canada. And then right underneath, it tells you what those road signs mean. So I feel like these are pretty intuitive, but if you weren't sure, go ahead and use the URLs and find out, for example. All right. One more top. There's no questions about this, but I just kind of wanted to include it because they're so popular these days. We've been talking about symbols as a type of text in the last 2 assignments, and tattoos are another form of text that you see often on a daily basis. Often tattoos hold great meaning for the person who has one. They can tell stories, they can indicate spiritual beliefs, show what a person is or was interested in, as well as a whole host of other information. A picture really is worth 1,000 words. So, for example, here we've got Georgie, sounds like that's the person that they were interested in. Sometimes the anchor is thought of as a symbol for guys that were in the Navy. Butterflies are often a symbol for transformation. So people often have them as tattoos to kind of show that they're changing. This one might suggest that the person likes Celtic symbols. And I'm not sure with this one, although it's beautiful, but it might be somebody's favorite place to go. All right, so I feel like that lesson is pretty simple. Now we're moving on to lesson 10. Lesson 10 is the last part of Unit 2. So we should be able to finish up Unit 2 tomorrow, I believe, which is great. We're really kind of going through this pretty well. The entire Unit 2 is 44 marks, not just this assignment. So here is what your unit says. Advertising is the art of convincing people to spend money they don't have for something they don't need. Will Rogers, who is a very famous actor and kind of played a cowboy a lot of times. The above quote is quite interesting and very negative, but you have to admit there are many times when you are watching TV or reading a magazine or even just driving down the road, minding your own business, and you suddenly need something being advertised. Like, for example, you're watching your favorite crime show and ooh, all of a sudden a commercial comes on for a McDonald's Big Mac. And suddenly you're feeling hungry and wanting to go for a drive. There's a reason why ads work, and they have a lot of details as to why they target certain people and how they target people, which we're going to be looking at in this lesson. So it's really important that you, as a consumer, become literate in reading and watching and hearing advertisements so you understand how manufacturers and whoever else is trying to like sell you the stuff, what they're doing. And I firmly believe that knowledge is power, and that gives you the ability to make sure that you are the one choosing to do things, not manufacturers trying to manipulate your emotions to buy things. All advertisements target a specific audience, and they are created for specific purposes. Usually, they're trying to persuade you to buy something. Often advertisements will try to appeal to more than one group of people. After all, the more people that are influenced by the ad, the more money the company doing the advertising makes. Having said that, there are certain groups of people that are kind of known for having a lot of money or known for spending a lot of money. So the younger group from like 18 to 25, who often may be working but don't necessarily have a family or a house or kids sometimes, are often targeted by advertisers because they have a lot of money to spend, right? It's not necessarily that they're rich, it's that it's not really like promised somewhere else in a sense. Okay, the audience for advertising. Yes, every type of writing is written for a specific audience, but that can be a very broad category. And the audience for advertising can be very specific. It really depends what you're advertising. Sometimes they will aim ads specifically at specific genders. Like if you look at kids' toys, it's often really clear whether they're targeting boys or girls. Certain age groups, kids, teenagers, young adults, middle-aged people, seniors. Again, it depends a little bit what they're trying to sell. They're probably not trying to sell luxury cars to seniors because, at that point, they're probably not buying luxury cars, but middle-aged people, they are all over that. Specific income ranges, in other words, how much money they make. For example, anyone can buy a certain brand of orange juice, but luxury cars are affordable only for a certain income bracket. So they might slant how they sell it a little bit differently than if they were trying to make it more appealing to a wider range of people. Specific hobbies, activities, or lifestyles, like woodworking enthusiasts, young people with no children, people who travel a lot, right? Sometimes their ads come on to TV and you're like, oh, this holds no interest to me because I just don't care about traveling. Sure, but there's other people who that's what they're dying to do. And so that ad is targeted towards them. Certain regions. I don't know if you knew this, but a lot of times the ads, even for the same products, may change from place to place because different regions will find different things appealing. So coastal regions, like where you're near water, large urban centers, rural centers. For example, you're probably not going to advertise John Deere tractors in Toronto because there's not really a whole lot of place for them to use it. On the other hand, you might be advertising boats like crazy in the coastal area because with all that water there, people are dying to buy boats. Okay, let me see, where am I at? Oh, I love this. This is a great Heinz ketchup commercial. While we're watching it, think about who are they targeting? Who is their audience? What appeal are they trying to make? And how are they making their product look attractive?
I've got an idea for a Heinz ketchup commercial. I was at this super posh restaurant, super posh. The type of place that has chandeliers and paintings on the wall and way too many forks. I think classical music was playing, but maybe it was jazz. No, definitely classical. The hostess walks up to me and she said, "Mr. Sheeran, is this your first time dining with us?" And I say, "Yep." The waiter comes over, he's telling me about the specials. Super fancy vegetables, fancy sauces. I said, "Sounds fancy." So fast forward and the food comes. The waiter goes on to tell me, "We are proud to present this farm to table blah blah blah, posh and fancy blah blah blah, with a side of blah blah blah." The food looked good. I just thought there was something missing. So I reach into my bag and I take out the only thing that can complete me. And at that point, the whole world came to a stop. And the waiter was screaming through his eyes. So that's my idea. Do you want to do it?
Okay, I really loved that when I first time I saw that. I thought that was great. Hang on, where's my escape button? Okay. So who are they targeting? Who is their audience? Now, again, sometimes people are tempted to tell me, oh, everybody is their audience. But for example, my mom, who is 85 years old, would be completely baffled by this commercial because she has no idea who Ed Sheeran is. She doesn't listen to Ed Sheeran's music. So it wouldn't be appealing to her, right? So it might be a much younger audience, people who are listening to Ed Sheeran. What appeal are they making, and how are they making their product look attractive? Well, this is a really common appeal, which is basically, hey, if famous people love our product, you might love our product too. The other idea is usually famous people are famous for something. In this case, for Ed Sheeran, it's because of his singing and musical talent. So it's also kind of like an appeal by association that like if you are doing or using the same kind of products this person has, it's kind of like you have the same kind of talents that they do. So they're making it look attractive because people want to be like Ed Sheeran, either in terms of being that talented or being that famous or being that rich. And so it caused people unconsciously kind of think, huh, well, if he likes it, maybe I should try it. Okay, so here's another ad. This is a Nike shoe ad, and it says the shoe works if you do. And then there's a pair of kind of blue, to me, they look kind of old-fashioned, but maybe it's kind of the old-fashioned that's new again. I don't know. The Nike Sweet Classic High is comfortable while still remaining in style. With great quality and a wide variety of color options, these sneakers are perfect for casual use. Stay fly, stay fresh, and get yourself a pair. Just do it. Nike.com. Okay, so who's selling the ad? Nike. What are they selling? These particular shoes. Who is the audience? Well, that one I'm kind of torn on because um, basically all sorts of people wear shoes. But the fact that they're calling this a classic makes me think that this is a older type of shoe that people wore back in the day and that they're bringing back. So it might be younger people who are kind of like, "Ooh, I'm doing it old school and I'm cool because I'm wearing something kind of vintage." But you also might be getting people who wore it the first time 20 or 30 years ago wanting to wear it again because they kind of have sentimental value to them. How are they trying to convince you to buy their product? They're really making it look down to earth. Like the background for this ad is gray, kind of crumpled paper. It's not perfect. The shoes are kind of blue denim, super comfortable. They use the word comfortable. Um, they talk about being in style. It's kind of not for the high athlete, right? Like Nike sometimes really targets Olympian level athletes. These are kind of the shoes for somebody who's not Olympian level, but maybe wants to be wearing the same kind of shoe as somebody who would. So, and again, it's the same kind of appeal of, really famous athletes wear this. And so me wearing this, it's kind of like I'm similar to them. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. Well, this is a little bit different. Okay, you can see here, I'm describing it for the radio people. There's a human leg, male, and then on the other side is clearly kind of a robotic leg or prosthetic in a sense. And the tag says, spare parts for humans are not as original as those for cars. Don't drink and drive. And then in little tiny letters, it says, issued in public interest by BMW. So who made the ad? BMW. What are they selling? It's interesting because they're selling kind of two things. On the surface, they're selling don't drink and drive. Okay. Be responsible, get someone else to drive, that kind of idea. But underneath, they're still kind of selling their own cars like, hey, we're the car company that cares. We're the ones that kind of show you, that drinking while driving isn't cool. I kind of also found myself wondering, is there any chance that BMW is involved in making human prosthetics? Because they could be, in which case there'd be kind of a third level of selling where they're also maybe kind of selling their particular brand of prosthetics. Who is their audience? Well, and again, we're tempted to say anyone, but A, it's got to be somebody who's of drinking age, and B, who's tempted to drink and drive. I won't say no seniors drink and drive because it certainly does happen, but it does, if you look at stats, kind of gear towards the younger bunch, right? How are they trying to make their product compelling? This is a tricky one. It's certainly unique. It's very eye-catching. Um, and I think it's also kind of buying into the idea of, hey, I'm being a responsible consumer. Yeah, I'm driving a cool, racy, fast car, but I'm going to do it in a responsible manner. So it kind of appeals to our own self-image in a sense. Okay, so as you can see, we're talking about advertising today. This is part A, okay? Later on, we'll talk about part B. I don't think we'll get to it today. I was definitely planning to talk to it. It is important to notice how different groups of people are portrayed, which means they're seen, or how they're trying to show them, I guess, in a sense. Your task is to go through some magazines and or newspapers until you have found some advertisements targeted towards the following groups of people. So I'm going to point out you can do this assignment using advertisements found on the internet, but the ads themselves must be in the format of a magazine ad, which we'll talk about in a second. Okay. Make sure if you are using real ads and it's not your magazine, that you get permission from the owner before you rip them out. So if you're at the doctor's office, you can't necessarily assume, hey, it's okay if I just tear this out. They won't mind. They might mind. You don't want to get people upset. You could always just take a picture of it with your phone. Okay. So you don't have to rip it out at all. Um, whatever ads you use, including whatever ones you find on the internet, either physically save them in a physical folder, or if you're grabbing them off the internet, make a folder on your computer and save them in there because you're going to need them for part B. Okay. Once you have an ad for each category that is listed, fill in the chart, which I will show you in a second, using point form describing what the ad is selling and how the people are portrayed in the advertisement. And this is worth 15 marks. If you are looking for specifically print magazines, nursing stations, doctor's office, dentist's office, library at the grade school, public library, small stores, those are all places you can get magazines. Sadly, you cannot get magazines in Sioux Lookout anymore, which causes me a great deal of grief, but oh well. All right, so here is the table they want us to fill in, okay? They haven't given you a lot of space, which I'm going to talk about in a second, but here are the people. So in other words, these people will physically be in the ad, okay? Senior citizens, which would be defined as anybody over 65, women, men, teenagers, people of color, parents. Now, often you're only be able to tell their parents if there's kids in the ad, although maybe the ad physically says something about parents. Families. In this case, we're going to define families as having some sort of parent and some sort of child in there. Could be an adult child, but still a child. Children, celebrities, somebody famous, middle-aged people. In that case, you're talking about like people my age, people your mom's age, that kind of thing. Young adults. That's a tricky one. It could mean like older teenagers, or it could mean people in the 18 to 25-year-old range. I'm not planning to be really strict as long as they look young-ish and not older. That's fine. Wealthy people. And now the last two categories I found a little bit confusing because I'm sure the person that wrote this knew what they meant, but I found myself confused. Disadvantaged people and people with challenges. I kind of thought of those as the same. So I was a little bit confused by what the person was talking about. People with challenges made me think maybe they were thinking of people that had like medical issues, like in a wheelchair, or somebody with Down syndrome, or I've seen some ads recently where somebody's missing an arm. Is that what kind of what they're meaning? I'm not positive. And disadvantaged people. Again, I wasn't sure what they mean. Do they mean people who are in poverty, immigrants, minorities because they're due to race issues or sexual orientation, or so for those two, I will happily take whatever you give me as long as I can reasonably see why you would think it belonged in that category. Because I think that's a little bit ambiguous and is hard to understand. Okay. This is the really, really, really important part. I've had a lot of people only fill in half the information for this, and then they don't get the marks that they were hoping for. Once you've found the ad, yep, you have to tell me what they are selling. So you wouldn't just say food, you would say, they're selling gluten-free waffles, okay? Or they are selling farm fresh eggs, whatever it is that they're specifically selling. Don't just say food or makeup, okay? How are the people portrayed? Also, don't send me the ads. I don't need to see them. I trust that you're saying something that's accurate. The only reason I would ask for them is if I thought that you were not being kind of on the up and up. Be very specific. So makeup equals is not correct. Cover girl lipstick, sure, that works. Um, Cars, no. Ford 150 truck, absolutely. Now, the word portray is kind of a fancy word. They just kind of mean like, how do the people seem? How are they trying to show what they're like? You could describe their feelings. Do they seem sad, happy, disappointed, embarrassed? You could describe their appearance. Do they seem fancy, athletic, poor, sexy, hip, old-fashioned? You could also describe the overall atmosphere given off in the ad, which could be related to like the props or the colors or whatever they're doing. Does it seem like they're trying to show people as being successful, adventurous, bullied, left out, tidy, messy? What kind of vibe, I guess, basically are you getting from the ad? So here is an example of what I mean. I found this ad and the tagline or their selling line says, live like royalty. Knightsbridge Home Healthcare Services, the best home care on this side of town. We want to make choosing home care simple and convenient while providing a peace of mind that your loved one can remain independent in their home. Come to us and we will make sure you and your loved one are cared for like royalty in your palace. And there's a little home there with a little tiny heart and a king on it. I can't quite read the letters at the very bottom. It's very tiny there. Call us now and let our specialists guide you. So this would meet the criteria of senior citizens. You can see they're kind of older, gray hair, kind of slumped over a little bit. What are they selling? They're selling Knightsbridge Home Health Care Services. In other words, the kind of thing where a PSW or a nurse comes to your home and just helps the older people there instead of putting them in a nursing home. How are they portrayed? Positive, happy. They're surrounded by this beautiful golden light. They've got crowns on. So you can't just say home health care, happy. We're looking for a little more details, even though I know they haven't left you a lot of room. Which brings us to, I would honestly probably use lined paper. I have really big handwriting myself, and I would find it impossible to write neatly into that little tiny chart. You don't want me to be in a situation where I'm holding the paper up to the light trying to read it, because if I can't read it, I default to, okay, they don't get the point because I don't know what they're saying. So really, 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 you want to make sure that I can read your handwriting, okay? Um, Here's like an example. You just set up a table, right? Here's your margin. I put a line down, I put the name of the person, and I write what they're portraying. Then I would write the next one. I don't have to fill the whole chart in ahead of time. I can just do it as I go along. I think there's about 15 people here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, it's 14 altogether, but it's worth about 15 marks. So I guess one part for completion. I don't know. Please make sure to include both what they're selling and how the person in question is portrayed, not just how they look, but how they're trying to make you feel. People often lose, like I said, almost half the marks during this assignment for doing one or the other. So, as I said, it's hard to find magazines. So I myself I don't have that many magazines. I went online. The tricky part is when they're saying magazine print ad, they have a specific type of ad in their mind when they say that. So if I call on the internet, right, like magazine ads, it's going to bring up all sorts of images. But remember, those search engines, they're not people at the end of it. They don't know for sure. They're just sort of grabbing images and hoping for the best, right? It doesn't necessarily mean it counts as a magazine ad. So all of these, they don't count as magazine ads. And here's the reason why. So this one, it's really just a picture of somebody's desk and their computer. It's not a magazine ad. This one is the cover of a magazine, but it's not really an ad. It's just kind of showing this, I believe that's a group called Blackpink. Here, this might be a poster. It doesn't look like an ad. It might be a meme. It says in an English, parents have called to abolish junior school exams. And then I can't quite see the bottom part. It might be a photo going along with a magazine story. Um, how can you be sure it's magazine ad? Typically, magazine ads are the full page of a magazine, and magazines can be slightly different sizes, but generally you're looking at the idea of around 8 by 5 to 11 inches. They're long rectangles and they're going to be in the portrait view like this, right? It won't be in the landscape view because people don't read magazines in the landscape view. The name of the product will be somewhere on the page, even if it is quite small. Like when we saw the BMW ad, it was a tiny little spot. But it's going to be there somewhere because they're paying money to sell their product. So the product name or icon will be somewhere on there. It will not have the name of a magazine on it. If it does, they're selling the magazine, they're not selling an ad. There are no moving graphics, right? If there's a moving graphic, it's like a Facebook ad or some other type of ad because those things only work on computers. They wouldn't work in a magazine, okay? If you enter magazine print ads, especially the word print, you're going to see a whole lot of items come up. So here's an example of what I got. But again, like I said, not all of these are ads. I'm going to see, can I make this a little bit bigger to kind of, oh, like that meant smaller. That's not what I was looking for. Okay. So here, uh, it says 29 brilliant magazine print ads. I'm not, I think these are both print ads. I would actually go into the article and try and read it. Here, this is definitely a print ad. This is another article about print ads. So is this one. Quite a few of these are showing you places to go to look at print ads. Let me see here. Yep. Um, yep. Some of these are more like here, this one they're trying to sell you on the idea of buying print ads. It's not really about the print ads. It's like, hey, print ads are a great way to build your business. Same thing over here. Here are the metrics. In other words, the selling and profit statistics for print ads. So a lot of these, you can't really see them very well, but if you click on the the link underneath, it will bring you to the page that has a bunch more ads. Oh, I'm going to make this small again. Let's see here. Okay. Oh, this is what I'll try to show you. So here, this one, they're selling you one thing, but as well, if you go into the article, there's a whole bunch more magazine ads. Some of them might lead to what you were looking for. Now, some magazines do have digital version of their magazines, and I kind of went in there to see if I could find like traditional magazines in there too, maybe. But digital magazines didn't really seem to use traditional print ads. They really used a whole different type of advertising. And so for the purposes of this assignment, they're not really going to work. You can also enter very specific search engine terms. Like if I'm looking for someone and I'm having trouble to find them, I could say magazine ads with senior citizens. And you can see a lot of different things came up. Not all of them, like this one is a senior magazine. This one is just talking about marketing in general. This one is actually talking about a vintage article, not necessarily about senior citizens. So for any category that you're having trouble finding people for, it's fine to go, magazine ads with wealthy people, magazine ads with disadvantaged people. It might not come up with something, but it might, and it's worthwhile looking at it. Just kind of look at it carefully and make sure it really is an ad, for example. Okay. Yeah, we're getting close. Okay. So here we're going to practice. So here is an ad. They're selling a protein powder. Now, looking at this now, I'm not sure this is technically a magazine ad, although I think there were magazine ad versions. They're portraying this protein powder as a product for girls who want to look sexy and be beach body ready. And the girl is in a revealing bikini and they're selling basically a powder that you add to like shakes. This was actually a really controversial ad because people got very offended by the idea of beach body ready because they felt like it was saying like if you didn't look as thin and perfect as her, then you somehow weren't allowed to go to the beach and swim, and they didn't like that idea. So this was actually a very controversial ad think they had to kind of pull it eventually. Now, they're still selling protein powder here. It's a different ad, right? But look at how they're portraying this guy, right? Her, they're looking at very thin, very revealing. Doesn't particularly look that strong. Like you're not really seeing muscles or anything. Here, oh my gosh, they've just got muscles a go-go and all these tattoos, and he's got golden light coming off of his body as if he's almost a god. So he's being portrayed as super powerful. These two protein powder ads are geared for totally different markets, clearly, right? They don't feel that a guy is going to buy protein powder looking at this. By the same token, they don't feel that a girl is going to look like this and go, yeah, I want to look like that. Having said that, there are obviously some girls who do want to look like this, who do bodybuilding. But in general, they're targeting a certain type of audience and they're tailoring their ad towards that. This is kind of, it's not quite an ad. It's what you call a public service ad. And it's talking about not driving drunk. They use kind of a, not a great phrase, don't drive stupid.com. However, one of our criteria is looking for somebody in, I think it was disadvantage or something. So here's a teenager. He's in a wheelchair. He's got his head down. He's in a shadow. How does he portray? He's portrayed as defeated, as lonely. They've got the word stupid several times. They're kind of calling this guy names. And the idea is like that this kid apparently drove drunk stupidly and injured himself, which is kind of a horrible ad, quite frankly. And they're portraying people in wheelchairs very negatively as well. And that's what they're trying to get at, is that sometimes advertisements will portray certain groups very positively and certain other groups, like say people in wheelchairs, very negatively. And even when we aren't aware of it, that can affect how we view those people. So what they're trying to get you to do is sort of be more aware of the way that advertisers try to sell their products through associating it with certain groups of people. Okay. Um, if you have not read chapter 4 in Jimmy Comes Home yet, please do so. If you want to, you could also kind of go on to chapter 5 and 6, because we'll probably have some time to discuss it tomorrow. At least I'm hoping to. Having said that, chapter 6 discusses some really challenging subjects. And if you find yourself overwhelmed or triggered by negative thoughts, especially thoughts of self-harm or suicide while reading it, it is fine to stop reading it, okay? Reach out to your local health authorities or the hospital or the mental health workers in your community if you feel like you need help. I am also including a possible hotline to call if you feel like you're having an emergency health crisis. And I'm saying this because there's some pretty controversial stuff. And I know that some students have said, hey, I found that really hard to read. So I don't ever want to put anybody's mental health at risk by reading something that's traumatizing you. By all means, put it down, send me a message. Hey, I can't handle this particular assignment right now. And that's fine. I will totally understand that. Okay. Here are some of the possible hotlines if you are needing help and wanting someone to talk to. There is the Hope for Wellness helpline, runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 1-855-242-3310. There's also one called Talk Suicide, 1-833-456-4566. That's toll free anytime. At night, they have a little text number, 45645. Talk for Healing has confidential helpline for Indigenous women available in 14 different languages, 1-855-554-HEAL. Then we've got the Métis Nation of Ontario. They deliver 24-hour help on a crisis line, 1-877-767-7572. That one is only available in English and French. I'm sorry. And then I'm worried I'm going to say this wrong, but Anatig Healing Lodge and Learning Center, 705-534-3724, and the Fort Frances Tribal Area Health Services, 807-271-0194. And obviously, if you're in immediate danger or have unfortunately harmed yourself, then you would reach right out to 911. Okay. And I hate even talking about this, but I would feel even worse if I had people thinking that they have to finish this assignment. And even though it's causing them a lot of mental trauma, I know there are plenty of students out there who've been through a lot And although I think this is a really good book and addresses some really important issues, some of the topics it addresses might be kind of triggering for some people. All right, we are wrapping up our time. Is there any questions out there before we go? No? Okay. Well, tomorrow is our last class before March break. If anyone wants to reach out to me and ask me any questions about assignments before March break happens, by all means, please message me or call me tomorrow and I will try to get back to you. Thank you so much for showing up, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.